Hey-o.
That's bringing the energy.
I don't want to clip.
Woo! How much COVID do you have in your house right now?
Oh, my God. 25% COVID in my house.
Wow.
I guess including
Nice.
the dog and cat, 16.6% repeating. It's not bad. Yeah, live from an oily puddle.
Yeah. It's very wet.
It's the ESG industry's only weekly woke data podcast featuring analyst Hull Matt Moscardi. Yeah.
Yes, that's me.
And today's greasy ESG gas bag called September 13th, 2023. Oily CEO exits.
Oily fans.
Oily racist NFL owners.
Oh, ew.
An oily gross dude who can't be fired. And the great Paul Hodgson from S-Gage.
Is Paul oily? Why doesn't he get the oily?
He's not that oily. He's normal oily. Our show today...
Tell me about S-Gage.
Our show today is being sponsored by S-Gage, your
That's
ESG
right.
data solutions provider. Paul from S-Gage will be in the studio later to talk about women in the workforce. As promised in last week's installment, Paul Hodgson.
I love when he promises things.
Come on, let's do it.
Let's get right to it.
I feel like every week we've had a high-profile CEO exit to talk about. But then again, there's only there's roughly 50 weeks in the year. There's at least we cover pretty regularly 800 of the world's biggest companies. So I someone's going to resign every week, right?
I mean, it's
not
inevitable.
It's
right?
not that interesting. I thought it was interesting.
CEOs cycle out in 5-year periods, and there are roughly 1,000 non-controlled large cap companies in the world. Just do the math. You're going to get one a week.
Maybe we've just had some good ones recently, including this one. This is a headline buster. BP CEO Bernard Looney resigns over past relationships with colleagues.
Sounds very blackmail-y.
So the resignation was a surprise. The company, the board, they didn't know this was coming.
I think that's false also.
Okay. The takeaway here was that Looney was not fully transparent about past personal relationships with colleagues. So the board investigated him in 2022. And according to the board, he didn't really say everything he maybe should have said. There are new allegations coming up now. And so Looney is sort of tiptoeing away.
Yeah, well, so that's part of his resignation was a surprise, but they were investigating him since 2022. They must have had conversations with him that suggested, well, what's the deal with this thing, right? Or that thing.
They claimed, they claimed he did not breach a company code. I think the issue was that he didn't tell them everything. I think that's as simple as that.
Yeah.
But what he told them, they were okay with.
When you don't breach a company code of some policy that they have, probably some harassment-y policy or something like that, and yet when the board is telling you, no, what you're doing is fine, we're just asking you some questions, and you quit. What does that suggest? The board doesn't know as part of their current investigation that they're going to find out inevitably.
Here's what I like. So the board received further allegations in the last, few weeks, month, whatever. Here's the quote from BP's press release. Mr. Looney has today informed the company that he now accepts that he was not fully transparent in his previous disclosures. What is that? I mean, that's a very British kind way of calling him a liar, right? I mean, he accepts? All right.
Previous to this, he did not accept the fact that he hid things, but now he accepts that fact. It's like born again transparency.
Let's pull back for some bigger context here, because it raises some questions about what's next at BP. But let's not forget that Looney has been facing a lot of criticism. So he started at BP promising the world, right? He was
That's true.
He was the environmental savior, and it was at a time when it was okay to do these things. It was okay to embrace helping the environment. That was like
blah, blah, blah.
2 or 3
blah,
years
blah,
ago.
Blah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Like 10 minutes ago when the environment was cool.
But since then, just like the new Shell CEO, he has kind of been, quiet about some of those promises, despite the fact that BP announced record profits, or at least they doubled their profits to $28 billion. That's a little bit of the bigger context here, because I wonder, will the next CEO basically get rid of all that stuff, just like the new Shell CEO, or does this have nothing to do with the story, and he is literally walking away because he's a jerk?
My read on it, first of all, he said that he would pare back all of this carbon-y,
all of his bullshit
stuff.
Promises.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
He said he was actually not, like, they're paring back that, knowing they're going to emit more, and started like the line that everybody seems to be using today, which is, we really, really need the oil. Like, in order to make the transition to a low carbon economy, we need to blow up more stuff, right? Like that's
right.
That argument seems
instead of just handing out bikes, we need the oil.
So he said that already. So I think it has nothing to do with any of that stuff. Like, I don't think this, I think very squarely has to do with he knows they're going to find something, or something very embarrassing is going to come up, or someone has information about him that he does not want anyone to know. The quickest resolve here is rip the Band-Aid off, resign, disappear for 6 months. No one cares then because you're not the CEO, and none of it has to come out. I think that's what's going on.
In some other contexts at BP, there's been a recent history of kind of strange CEO transitions, departures. So this is not the first time that BP has screwed up in this regard. So back in 2007, Lord John Brown, I don't know if you remember any of this, he stepped down. He resigned amid allegations about his romantic life, i.e., he was hiding the fact that he was gay.
Oh,
and an alleged misuse of company funds. So this was a big tabloid story at the time. He went so far as to sue to prevent newspapers from revealing his relationship. There were allegations that that company resources were diverted for his boyfriend, and that Lord Brown had attempted to evade taxes. There was all kinds of. This was a crazy tabloid story. So he stepped down a year early. And then Tony Hayward took over in 2007. In 2010, the Deepwater Horizon oil spill happened, forcing Tony Hayward out because they put the blame right on him. So there's
he said, one of the quotes after Deepwater Horizon was, I really feel badly that this happened and destroyed so many people's homes and livelihoods. I would really love to just get back to my regular life. That's what he said at the time, which, I mean, true, but horrible.
Now, if that would have happened now, or in the last 5 years, he would have been replaced by a woman. It was a perfect glass cliff scenario, but they didn't really do that then. So he was replaced by actually a boring white guy named Bob Dudley, who kind of righted the ship. And then I think everyone got bored of Bob because his name is Bob Dudley, and he did what he had to do. And that's when Bernard Looney came in, all this breathing fire about how he was going to, turn to renewables and blah, 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 blah. So here we are. So the CFO is taking over in the interim. His name is Murray
Auchincloss.
Yeah, I don't think that's the kind of name that can last a while at BP. But
it does sound the kind of name.
Lord John Brown, Bob Dudley, Bernard Looney. They're not going to turn to Murray.
No, come on.
Auchincloss.
You have to say Murray Auchincloss while wearing a monocle. That's really the only way you can say his name.
Now, you have a bunch of information on BP. Do you want to do that now or later? I'll give you the option.
We'll do my segment now. Who
Let's
cares?
do it. Let's do it.
Because
Let's change the outline. This is showing how professional we are. We're gonna pivot in. We're gonna lean into your BP reporting. Let's go.
all right,
Come
let's
on.
do this thing. And I get the exciting
wait.
music.
Yeah, but
You
I
get
need the
crappy
NFL music from
I
my
get the
stories.
exciting music. Here's what's happening with BP's board.
Wait, I just told them. Oh, the board. Good. I want to
Yeah.
know about this.
Just with the board. So you went through a little bit of the history. I actually went back a little bit further because I needed to get a pattern. I want to predict who the next BP CEO is going to be.
Yes.
Okay, this is your prediction alert.
And I'm gonna say before you even get to the prediction, I have a few lingering questions. Is this a glass cliff scenario, right?
Ooh, yeah.
Because
okay.
there's cleaning up a mess, right? Or is this a opportunity to finally have someone who doesn't have a boring white person's name, right?
Probably
We've had a lot of Bob Dudley types over the years.
Yeah.
Or Southeast Asian CEO theory. Could this be happening?
Getting warmer.
Or
all right.
do we just get a guy from Texas with one of those dumb hats because we're going to lean super into oil?
That would be.
Right?
So first of all, this is BP. Okay. Here's part of your clue. In 1992, the CEO was Baron David Simon, and in 1995, it was Lord John Brown.
See what I'm saying?
10-gallon hat guy is not.
No, but
not
this might be the
joining.
moment.
No, this is not the moment.
Ride an anti-woke wave of
for
glory.
Rodeo Permian Basin CEO
Let's
to
see.
ride
Let's
in
see.
and anti-woke the whole thing. They're going to do the high-class version of that if they're going to do it, right? Okay. But you mentioned all these CEOs, but what you didn't mention is that Baron David Simon was the CEO in 1992, made CEO in 1992. He joined BP in 1961. It was his first job. He was a lifer.
Yep.
Lord John Brown, CEO in 1995,
Yep.
joined BP in 1966.
Ooh, a lifer.
Also his first job. He was
Wait a minute.
lifer.
More importantly, what's better, a baron or a lord?
Oh man,
Confusing because here in the U.S., Lord doesn't Lord refer to Jesus Christ, so I think the Lord would have to be the highest.
What is better, a baron or a lord?
Baron sounds like they have more money.
Well, Trump named his son Baron.
Okay, so it's worse. So Lord
I'm
wins.
going to go with Baron is the winner. Okay,
Okay.
that's it. In 2007, Tony Hayward becomes CEO. He joined BP in 1982, also his first job.
Oh,
Are you seeing a pattern here?
yeah.
In 2010, Bob Dudley becomes CEO, as you mentioned. He had actually joined Amoco in 1979 as his first job. Amoco was bought by BP. He left to become CEO of a Russian oil company, came back in 2009. So he's effectively a BP lifer with a stint at a Russian oil company. And in 2020, Bernard Looney joined BP. In 1991, he had joined BP. It was his first job. He was
Okay.
there throughout.
Lots of
They
life- wait.
only hire BP lifers.
Wait.
Because Bernard Looney actually, his first job was at also at Amoco, which was acquired by P, and he just stayed throughout. From Looney's,
We have some news into the Business Pen studio
breaking
here.
news.
A lord is a member of the gentry and ranks below a baron and above an esquire.
that is correct. There you go.
Oh, thank you.
That's because Trump would never name his son
All right, keep
Baron
going.
if it wasn't the
Keep
higher
going.
thing. And now we have Murray Auchincloss,
Interim CEO, who
Interim
is currently
CEO.
the CFO, right?
who joined Amoco
Amoco.
as his first job prior to them being acquired by BP. So another
not
lifer.
Not a lifer.
Another lifer.
Oh, he is a
Auchincloss
lifer.
has 11%. He's currently on the board. He was on the board prior to being named interim CEO, which means he was a very well-known entity to put as interim CEO. He had 11% of influence on the board. He'd been on the board for a couple of years. The succession planning group is led by the People and Governance Committee, which includes board chair Helge Lund,
Okay.
Paula Reynolds, I think Tim Sawyer, and Pamela Blanc, I believe are the names. Something
All
like
right.
that. I'm not actually looking at their first names. I have all their last names. But what that means is these are the people who A, should have known and did know about Looney, and B, they have a whopping 44% of board influence. Nearly half of the board influence is on the nominating committee.
Okay.
So whatever they choose is likely to be it.
And
right?
who's
Like
the chair
done.
again? Who's the chair of that committee?
Helglund is the chair of the board, and he
Helglund.
sits on that committee,
Okay.
which means there's no real point of anybody else being
Yeah.
on that board because it's just going to be his choice.
Okay. Are we getting to a prediction here?
Here's the prediction.
Yeah.
If we use past patterns, you would
Yes.
pick someone who started their career at BP, was effectively a BP lifer. UK royal title is preferred, but not required.
Well, but I'm thinking maybe it would be maybe an Esquire.
Esquire is just a lawyer. That's not a. That's
Well, in
not-
England, it might be more than that. It might also be a barista, so just be careful.
The history would suggest it is a white male,
Of course.
unless you're going to purposefully do a 2-year glass cliff scenario.
Okay.
Like you're going to go into this saying
Sort of like
you have to have a
yeah.
cleanup glass cliff situation.
kind of like the current Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. It sounds like he might not last that long.
Which
So maybe-
is my prediction. Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
I'm going to give you a drum roll. The New Age Glass Cliff CEO, it would seem like interim CEO Murray Auchincloss, because he's white, male, knows the board, is a lifer.
Yeah, but he's a numbers nerd.
He's a numbers nerd. He also said wind power is the new upstream at one point.
That's not
And a
good.
knock against him, Canadian citizen.
That's
It might
bad,
have
too.
seemed like he was a player.
No.
But it's actually going to be one Dev Patel.
Nope. I
What?
think you got that wrong.
There we go. It's going to be our Dev Sanyal.
Yes, I
Sorry.
think that's more appropriate.
I
yeah.
said it
I think
wrong.
Dev
'cause I was
Patel is an
looking at the-
actor. Or-
Yeah, Dev Patel is an actor, and I wish he was going to be the CEO. But it's going to be Dev Sanyal.
Yeah.
He is a Southeast Asian male. He's born
Perfect.
in India.
Perfect.
He fits your CEO theory, replacement theory.
Sure.
He had a 32-year career at BP.
Perfect.
Prior to becoming CEO of Varo Energy in the last 2 years.
Yep.
In his titles at BP, he had both gas for the oil and gas drilly kind of thing, and low carbon, which is now seems to be a something you say in your
Yes,
in
low
your
carbon
titles.
as opposed to like extremely high carbon. Yeah. it's a
Yeah,
good thing to
nobody
say.
says high carbon.
No.
Head of high carbon stuff.
high carbon.
And he was
avocado
on the
toast.
executive
Yeah.
team as late as 2020 with almost the entire board, current board.
Yeah.
And the entire nominating committee that's going
This
to
is
pick,
perfect.
They'll know him.
Well, first of all, how did you find Dev? How did you search?
I
for
went
him?
back through
Yeah.
all of the filings
Yeah.
over the last 5 years, and I wanted to find lifer BP people who are no longer at BP, so they
Okay.
could look like external hires.
Yes.
Preferably women or Southeast Asian males.
Sure. Of course.
And Dev Sanyal was the one who popped. That
this
was
is
the one who
This
popped.
is an absolute no-brainer. I'm going to honestly say I'll be shocked if it's not this person.
So
This
I
sounds
expect
like the absolute perfect choice for BP.
in the next 6 months they will announce Dev Sanyal as the incoming CEO of BP.
Yep.
He's already got the experience. He's been there. He
Don't
knows the
waste
ropes.
your
He
money,
knows the
BP.
people.
Looking, we have your pick. It's Dev.
We
Sanyal.
have your pick. We know, and he's going to come in. Here's sub prediction. He's going to have less influence than Helglund and current board members. He will be a low influence CEO because he's a Southeast Asian male glass cliff CEO. That's
right.
my prediction.
Beautiful. Can we get
Back to you with
Can we get
other
off BP?
things.
Let's get off
Yeah,
BP,
no
but
more
stay
BP.
with oil. The theme of today's
Oh.
show is oil. Demand for all three. This is all happening in the same time frame, right? This happened yesterday. Demand for all three major fossil fuels, oil, coal, and natural gas, will peak this decade, marking the beginning of the end of fossil fuels and a historic turning point in the world's transition toward renewable energy, according to the International Energy Agency. Okay, this prediction suggests that current climate policies are helping to drive the transition away from fossil fuels, and that stronger action on climate change could encourage a faster decline in demand. The reason why I bring this up is this, Matt, is that, which is why I think your pick of Dev is a good pick, and why my pick of a big burly Texan man with one of those weird hats is also a good pick, because now is the time. You got 7 years basically to squeeze all the billions of profit to really go big oil and gas, right?
Well, that's what
now
they're
going to
doing.
pretend like they have to do it now. They're going to pretend we got to burn oil to get to this transition. We gotta go for it.
But we're literally going to, like, if we accelerate beyond business as usual in order to
Which
get
they will.
to 2030,
Which they
is
will.
a magic make-believe line to say that's the peak, right?
But it ends in zero, so it's nice.
The reason why I agree with the audience who is booing is stop saying this decade. Just say peak oil needs to have passed.
Now.
We need to be on the decline.
Absolutely.
We have to stop saying like, oh, we've got a little bit more time to burn the shit out of stuff.
Yeah.
No, we don't have more time. We need to be past peak oil. We need all of these CEOs to stop saying, oh, because it's real profitable now and there's a war in Ukraine and I can come up with 5 reasons, we're going to sell a lot of it. We're going to privatize it and they're going to burn shit anyway. Stop doing that.
It is an interesting moment, though. This guy does come in with this very sort of pro ESG, whatever you want to call it, pro environmental promise, right? Bernard Looney came in with a lot of fanfare 3 years ago. And now that we're turning back the other way, you know, like when you look at Shell, the new CEO basically getting rid of all those environmental pledges, you do kind of have to wonder a little bit if the board was just like, we can do better. Let's use some of these. Let's dig up some of this old gossip, some of these old allegations, and let's just help them leave. I don't know. I'm just trying to create a nice little conspiracy theory for you.
I like that. But the first thing Looney said was he was going to reinvent BP for low carbon world.
Yeah, that's not a good thing in 2023. That was good. That worked in 2020.
Yeah, that's exactly when it worked.
But that's how I can see why the board might be like, no, we need oil now. We're going for it. Record profits. Let's do this.
Yeah, I
just putting it out there.
But I think the IEA saying it's going to peak this decade gives them the leash to say, well, there's a lot of decade left.
And that's why maybe you don't want someone like Looney, who they brought in
that's why
to
maybe
turn
you
the other
need to
direction.
Stop saying that
All
we
right.
can peak this decade and still be okay.
Moving on. Let's stay with oil, though. This is actually a story we covered in a great amount of detail. I don't remember why we first covered this, but we spent basically a whole show on this a few months back. The headline is that ex-NFL Network reporter sues the NFL for racial discrimination. The one website's calling it, the lawsuit is a smoking gun for the rampant racism within Roger Goodell's NFL, and that the 53-page complaint paints a picture of Goodell's guilt and gives an account of how meaningless the NFL's activism has always been. The reporter Trotter said he witnessed unchecked discriminatory conduct throughout his time at the NFL's in-house cable network. He alleging that 2 specific owners. This is why I'm calling this an oil story. So part of the complaint is this kind of these allegations against 2 of the NFL's owners. One of them in Buffalo. What's his name? What's his first? Terry. I want to say it's Terry Pagula. He said that the billionaire owner of the Bills said in a response to player protests, quote, "If the black players don't like it here, they should go back to Africa and see how bad it is."
Wow. That is...
And I'm saying, like, can you imagine that this reporter for the NFL Network, Jim Trotter, can you imagine he's making this up? I mean, I know that the owners are denying this, but I can't imagine making up a quote like that. But here's the context I wanted to show. Pagula, why is he a billionaire? He sold his natural gas drilling company part of it to Shell for $5 billion and part of it to American Energy Partners for $2 billion. So that's where he got his money. The other allegation goes against the Cowboys billionaire owner, Jerry Jones, who said that black people should buy their own team and make their own hires if they feel that there's like a problem in the NFL with racism. And Jerry Jones also made his billions from an oil and gas exploration business. So, Matt, it's all about oil. That's what I'm trying to get at here. All about oil.
It's really great. You know, the number of people who made billions of dollars digging rocks out of the ground and lighting them on fire, and then go on to run other companies, do other things, and change policy and all that kind of stuff, like, is sort of shocking. It a little bit makes me wish that I was really good at digging. Because then
you're good at digging information out about the BP board.
Yeah, but it'd be better if I was good at digging up black rocks I can light on fire, because I could be owning sports teams and saying racist stuff and there's no accountability.
Part of Trotter's complaint, the NFL Network, part of his lawsuit, is some great ESG data work. He presents, unfortunately, this does not make for a good podcast moment, but I don't care. He presents a picture of the reporting tree that he has to go through, and it is, I'm going to count them. Well, it starts with Jim Trotter, the black NFL network reporter. Then it goes up to the head of digital content, and then the executive editor, SVP, NFL, blah, 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 blah. It's white man, white man, white man, white man, white man, white man, white man. That last white man was Roger Goodell, who then reports up to 30 NFL owners, none of which we know are black. So this is part of his demonstration of the systemic racism going on at the NFL. But the good news here is that despite the smoking gun of racism at the NFL, right, which we've reported on many times in the past, what also happened this week was that Aaron Rodgers, well-known QAnon crazy anti-COVID dude, he hurt his ankle or something. So that's what the NFL is talking about. He is out for the season. That's what we're all focusing on. We can safely ignore this lawsuit because it's not as important as a QAnon quarterback hurting his ankle, Matt. It's just not as important.
He's not QAnon. He's just an anti-vaxxer
Rogan-anon?
who believes he knows more than everybody else.
He's a Roganite.
Yeah, he's a Roganite. Yeah, that's right.
I'm a Reaganite. He's a Roganite.
Are you a Reaganite?
That's of course. Who wouldn't love the great Ronald Reagan? And finally, here's a good one because I don't think I've really seen this before. And look, we're staying with just disgusting oily dudes, okay?
Now we're going to oily dudes.
Because we're talking about Vince McMahon. Can you think of a more disgusting oily dude?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he is a greasy guy. I'm just saying. The WWE and UFC have officially merged to form the TKO group. That stock has started trading today or yesterday. Endeavor owns 51% of the new company. Vince McMahon holds 16%. So the board is split between 5 WWE directors and 6 Endeavor directors. But essentially, this is a controlled company, okay? So throw governance out the window. But here's the interesting part. Vince McMahon, it was part of a governance agreement. They called it a governance agreement. I've never seen before. Here's a quote from that agreement. He will serve as the executive chair of the combined company until his death, resignation, or incapacity. Matt, he has a lifetime contract as executive chair of this new company. They cannot get rid of him. It looks like from this contract, they cannot fire him. And let's not forget that a year ago, he retired. He was forced out as chair of the WWE. He stepped down because of allegations of sexual misconduct. So he just left the chair post within the last year for being an oily jerk. And now he has maybe this is why he got the lifetime contract, right?
There's no contingency clause for
I saw
more
nothing.
Sexual harassment.
It literally says until his death, resignation, or incapacity. It doesn't say anything about about being terminated for breaching some code of conduct or anything.
That's the worst contract I've ever heard.
And I will say this to end, before we transition over to Paul, I will say this, that I wish all CEOs were more like this next one. The UFC CEO, Dana White, who's part of this, new organization, he said, quote, "I don't give a shit about that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?"
Yeah, I do. I know what you mean. Yeah.
That's what he was asked about Vince McMahon's lifetime chair role. So I wish all CEOs were kind of like that. I wish they would.
I don't give a shit about who my boss is going to be. That's right. Yeah.
I feel exhausted.
That is a lot. I mean, a
lot of oily nonsense going on.
So we're clear too, the board makeup here, we are talking about
some of the best
Vince
assholes
McMahon,
in America. Yeah.
It's Nick Khan. It's Stephen Coonan from WWE and Nancy
Ari Emanuel
from WWE. But Ari Emanuel and Egon Durbin,
maybe the greatest asshole ever. Yeah.
Are leading the charge. I have to say, I'm a little sad.
Yeah.
Because one of the board members of this group is Jonathan Kraft.
Yes, the Patriots, the son of the Patriots empire
owner.
Right, but at least it makes sense. At least it's like a nepo baby moment, so that's good.
Also on there is Mark Shapiro, who's who is CEO of he's a baseball team, right? I think he's the CEO of the Blue Jays or something that.
I got it wrong. He was formerly of ESPN, I believe.
A different Shapiro, I believe, was the. Yeah, this is just such an insular little world, and it's no wonder why you wouldn't give a shit about that, because what's the point? There's no governance.
Well,
speaking of no governance,
before we get to Paul, this again, yet another reason why controlled companies, Zuckerbergian universes, they absolutely should not be listed on stock exchanges.
They're uninvestable.
This guy just stepped down from a chair role because of sexual misconduct, and he has codified that he can be the lifetime chair because there's absolutely no governance at the company. It's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous.
There's no governance on purpose. And look, you're as a shareholder, you're entitled to two things: an orange juice at the annual meeting and a vote. Right? Okay. And if you took away the vote, you can buy your own fucking orange juice. You shouldn't invest in the company. Like, I don't care. I don't know. They should have actually two listing services. One for companies that are adult companies where you have a vote and you have rights as a shareholder, and another listing service like the New York Stock Exchange Lite, where it is gambling. It's just a roulette board, and you might as well throw fucking darts at it, because those companies can do whatever a lifetime appointment to a guy who basically admitted to sexual harassment and paying off the people who he sexually harassed with company funds. And the company got angry at him, not for the sexual harassment, but for the spending the company money. It wasn't even that he improperly spent it. It was that he spent it without properly accounting for it. That's what they were angry at. They said, it's fine if you pay off the people you sexually harass. You just need to put it in the right accounting bucket.
Maybe the bigger takeaway here, this guy, he's 78 years old. That's his track record. Maybe the bigger takeaway here is that the governance structures at controlled companies or companies controlled by, according to our influencer data, controlled by people like, Musk and Zuck, where it's only one person in power, the governance structures are pointless. Maybe that's the takeaway here. Like, you can be lifetime chair of the board, but it's all meaningless nonsense anyway. So do what you want.
I want to come back to these two because it does seem like there are a tremendous amount of the Form 4s are starting to come in, right? Which will tell you how structurally everyone's going to get paid. Right? Like all the pay stuff. They have committees because they have to have committees. There's an 8K here where, they've got all these, a million basically amendments, but they have to have the actual contract that McMahon signed and everybody else signed.
Yeah.
This stuff is hysterical. That we think that if we think there's like a problem with like I don't know, the way traditional elections are done, why do we not think that this is a problem in capitalism? Like capitalism is supposed to be half this.
Because I guess we're focused on DEI initiatives. That seems to be the one thing.
It's the problem. I get it. It's the woke. With that, let's get woke with our very own Paul. Come on in, Paul.
Paul's here to talk about women in the workforce. I'm very excited. Paul from S-Gage.
Hello there. Paul Hodgson here with S-Gage Statistic of the Week. So as promised last week, we're going to be looking at women in the workforce. Last week we looked at women on boards and women in management. So now we're just going to look at women in the workforce and then specifically women in the US workforce. So one of the things that S-Gage has uncovered about the disclosure rates of women in the workforce is that the number of companies, or rather the proportion of companies disclosing the number of women in the workforce has increased pretty exponentially. It's gone from just 38% in 2021 to 77.3% in 2023, with a corresponding decrease in the non-disclosure percentage from 62% down to 22.7%. Which is interesting in and of itself. If you look at, however, the disclosure rates of women in the US workforce, it's still pretty high in terms of non-disclosure. In fact, it's dropped a little bit from 94.1% in 2021 down to 83.1% in 2023. I'm not quite sure exactly what it is about US companies that are reluctant to break down their workforce diversity in this way, but it's pretty substantial. So let's have a look at what the actual numbers are of women in the workforce. Now, in the US workforce, it's been pretty standard across the years, the last 3 years, the years that we're looking at here, 2021, 22, and 23, at around 2/5. The average has gone up slightly from 40.1% to 41.2%, while the median's dropped slightly from 39.9% to 39%. That's for the Russell 3000. Now, if we look at women in the workforce more generally, the figures are pretty similar. So these are the global figures for women in the workforce for the Russell 3000. And again, they're around 2/5. Again, slightly down at the median, and in this case, slightly down at the average as well. That's for the Russell 3000. So let's have a look at the S&P 500 and see whether there's any changes in terms of the statistics there. Almost exactly the same, in fact, in terms of actual numbers, around 2/5 again. And the disclosure rate, slightly higher, but again, it's been high in the S&P 500 for the last 3 years. In terms of women in the workforce and disclosing those statistics. On the other hand, it's still pretty low for women in the US workforce, just above a quarter, 25.1% for the last 2 years, 2022 and 2023. And again, not quite sure what it is about US diversity statistics that would indicate that it's not an essential statistic for them to disclose about their US diversity. But there you are. I think we'd find the same sort of thing if we looked at pay equity disclosure rates, which is something that we're going to do next week. So this is Paul Hodgson signing off now with S-Gage Statistic of the Week.
Another tease there, like that.
Yeah, congrats to Paul for successfully teasing all of his segments. He's better at this than we are.
Yeah, we don't ever do that.
We never do that.
Well, we can tease the Friday show? Is that a tease?
Yeah, the Friday show, actually, we might have some interesting stuff because Jesse's down a rabbit hole looking at the least climate efficient directors in the world for Climate Week next week. Next week is Climate Week, and we might have a string of like a top 10 lists for director performance on carbon.
I hope the new MSCI Sustainability Institute has us dial into their car radio, because they need this.
This is what they wake up for.
And a lot of it comes from the great data at MSCI. So I don't know why they wouldn't want it. I mean, come on.
It's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. That's Sammy Morales. I'm your analyst, Matt Mascardi. We are Free Float. This was Woke Wednesday. Remember, set your calendars. 6 months from today or prior, Dev Sanyal becomes the BP CEO. You heard it here first. That is our prediction. Until Friday, goodbye.